The chief executive praises the outgoing police chief. A plan to extend Nongping 360. And Yemen in turmoil following deadly twin mosque bombings.
Good evening. Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying today praised the outgoing police commissioner for his hard work and dedication. Andy Tsang will retire in May. As Rani Samtani reports, the CE also raised concerns about possible terror threats in Hong Kong.
Speaking at the 2015 Fight Crime Conference, Leung Chun-ying said Hong Kong is facing a variety of challenges, including disputes arising from political reform, the influx of tourists, and the flu outbreak. And he said the police force effectively dealt with the Occupy movement last year and restored social order by using the minimum level of force.
Andy, 感謝你.
The chief executive praised police chief Andy Tsang and thanked him for his hard work and selfless dedication. Tsang, who will be retiring in May, said the Occupy movement seriously disrupted social order and undermined the rule of law.
You've noticed that large number of officers were deployed to deal with the illegal occupation. That meant many of the tasks that they were originally supposed to be doing, including anti-vice, anti-drugs, anti-gambling, anti-trial operation, would have to be suspended. That definitely will have an impact on law and order.
Critics, however, have criticized Tsang and the force for the way they handled the 79-day campaign. In addition, the chief executive commented on media reports that terrorist groups have been recruiting people in Hong Kong. He said the issue should not be taken lightly and called on police to take preventive measures against terrorist attacks. According to recent media reports, the Islamic State extremist group has been recruiting in Hong Kong, targeting Indonesian domestic helpers. The police commissioner played down security concerns.
There is no information suggesting that Hong Kong has become a target of terrorist attack. We appeal to members of the public, including our domestic helpers, to stay within the bound of the law.
A domestic helper who chose to remain anonymous received this image of a flyer in a text message inviting them to a Muslim gathering tomorrow. The flyer bears the Islamic State logo.
The reason why they are being targeted because we are Muslim. Being a Muslim is easy to talk to us about how to uphold Islam. So, because we are Muslim, it's easy for them to influence.
But Lestari doesn't believe foreign domestic helpers here would join these groups.
These women have to work for their family here in Hong Kong. And they are the breadwinner of the family that they need to think of.
She urged the Indonesian and Hong Kong governments to look into the matter. Rani Samtani, TVB News.
There are now plans to extend the Nongping 360 cable car system to help boost tourism on Lantau. A consultation study will begin this year. Owen Fung reports.
Opened in 2006, the cable car system connects Tung Chung and Ngongping on Lantau. Ngongping 360 is a key attraction for both locals and tourists. A plan to extend the system from Ngongping to Tai O was on the agenda at a meeting of the Lantau Development Advisory Committee today. The development chief announced a year-long consultation study will start this year.
We have heard appeals from the local community about improving the transport facilities so as to bring more tourists and local visitors to the village. And on the other hand, we are mindful of the fact that for most part of Lantau Island, conservation is very important. We have to strike a balance.
Chan added that the government will implement a number of short-term projects on Lantau, including revitalizing Tai O and Mui Wo, as well as opening a new mountain bike trail. On the proposed land reclamation on Siu Ho Wan, Chan said the project will be scaled down to lessen the impact on Chinese white dolphins in the area. Meanwhile, some developers have recently expressed interest in plans to build a shopping mall in the border area as part of efforts to divert mainland visitors from the urban areas. The development chief said the government welcomes such proposals, but Chan said the administration has not received any applications yet. Owen Fung, TVB News.
The chairman of the Standard Working Hours Committee stressed its recommendation for working hours to be clearly set in contracts is not the final proposal. Still, labour groups continue to criticise what they describe as a lack of action in protecting workers' rights. Demanding legislation for standard working hours, Labour representatives rallied outside the central government offices today. They accuse the Standard Working Hours Committee of siding with employers and setting a loose framework for regulating working hours. But committee chairman Leung Chi-hung told TVB News statistics gathered from its studies in the past 2 years showed this is the right direction.
That this consensus is that everybody agrees that we cannot have one system for all. A lot of people say, so why don't we have 44 hours? Can it apply to all jobs, trades and occupation? No, it cannot.
However, Leung stressed that the committee's suggested framework is just a general principle to start off with, not the final proposal.
The principle is that we have a generalized fixing that can apply to all trades and occupation profession. We're going to have small areas where we'll target specifically on those who are really underprivileged that we need to work. And we can merge these together, come up with a suggestion of how a law can be written to encompass both.
This as latest government statistics show that some employees, such as those in retail and elderly care, work 60 to 72 hours a week. That is 10 to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. Leung said it's this group of low-skilled, low-paid workers he particularly feels the need to protect. He said the need to improve on the culture of having more family and rest time is also important because some jobs could become a hazard to society if workers are not well rested, such as doctors and drivers.
Turning overseas now, in Singapore, the condition of former Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew continues to deteriorate. The Prime Minister's office released a statement today saying Lee's condition has worsened further. It gave no other details. The 91-year-old Lee has been in hospital with severe pneumonia since February 5th. Well-wishers left messages and floral tributes outside the hospital for the man seen as the founding father of modern Singapore. Lee served as the Lion City's first Prime Minister for more than 30 years before stepping down in 1990. He then served as Senior Minister and Minister Mentor.
The foreign ministers of China, South Korea and Japan today held their first trilateral meeting in 3 years. While little was expected of the meeting in Seoul, it served to try to overcome frosty ties due to tensions over history and territorial disputes. Both China and South Korea take issue with Japan at what they see as Tokyo's reluctance to properly atone for its wartime past. Earlier in the day, South Korean President Park Geun-hye met with Foreign Minister Wang Yi and his Japanese and South Korean counterparts for an informal chat. Suicide bomb attacks at 2 mosques in the Yemeni capital Sana'a have raised the possibility that Islamic State militants have found a new foothold in the rapidly fragmenting nation. The monstrous blasts have left 137 people dead and more than 350 injured. James Aitken reports on a frightening new layer of turmoil in a country on the brink of civil war.
It's the deadliest violence to hit the fragile, war-torn nation in decades. 4 suicide bombers targeted 2 mosques controlled by Shiite rebels. Yesterday's blasts tore through large crowds of worshippers attending midday prayers for weekly sermons. More than a dozen victims were children. At the United Nations, there was the familiar official outrage to such attacks and an appeal for all sides to cease hostilities and resolve differences through UN-facilitated negotiations.
The Secretary General strongly condemns the terrorist attacks on 2 mosques during Friday prayers in Sana'a. He deplores the killing of civilians and extends his condolences to the families of the victims.
A group claiming to be a Yemeni branch of Islamic State said it carried out the bombings and warned of an upcoming flood of attacks against the rebels, who've taken over the capital and much of Yemen. But in Washington, there is skepticism about the claims.
we have seen these kinds of claims in the past from other extremist groups. It does appear that these kinds of claims are often made for a perception that they have that it benefits their propaganda efforts. There is not at this point clear evidence of an operational link between these extremists in Yemen and ISIL fighters in Iraq and Syria.
If the claims are true, the bombings would be the first major attack by Islamic State supporters in Yemen, and an ominous sign that the influence of the group that holds much of Iraq and Syria has found yet another place to call home. The attacks could also be intended as a signal to rival terror group Al-Qaeda. If so, that could indicate a possible turf war as the two groups compete for recruits by showing who can unleash the most carnage. James Aiken, TVB News.
And still to come in our news tonight. 9 arrested as customs officers smash cross-border smuggling ring. Violence at New Orleans airport. And New Zealand all over West Indies in Cricket World Cup.
Research shows that people are gradually cutting their sleeping time, with hidden consequences. And hectic lifestyles are partly to blame, as 1 in 5 people in Hong Kong have been found to have insomnia. Tune in to find out where to get help. On The Pearl Report, Monday night at 9.
Well, no one told me about her, the way she lied. Well, no one told me about her, how many people cried. But it's too late to say you're sorry. How would I know? Why should I care? Please don't bother trying to find her. She's not there.
Coco Mademoiselle, Chanel.
Influenza is spread by droplets. To prevent influenza, you should open windows to maintain good indoor ventilation and observe personal and environmental hygiene. Always wash your hands. Cover your nose and mouth with tissue paper when sneezing or coughing. Wear a mask if you have symptoms of respiratory infection. See a doctor if symptoms persist or deteriorate. To protect yourself and family members, get vaccinated every year.
To stay healthy, let's fight influenza together.
What forms of life could possibly survive in a region that is flooded half the time and bone-crushingly arid the other half? Visit the Pantanal to find out. Tuesday, Wildest Latin America at 9:30 on Pearl Spectacular. The time now is 7:43. The time check was brought to you by Seiko.
Welcome back to TVB News. Customs officers say they have smashed a syndicate that used tour buses to smuggle electronic products to the mainland. They arrested 9 people and seized goods worth $22 million. Among the items confiscated, thousands of mobile phones and tablet computers. They were seized from a number of vehicles and warehouses in the new territories. Customs officers say some of the items were concealed in a hidden compartment on a tour bus that was intercepted at the Shenzhen Bay control point yesterday. Authorities say the syndicate recruited tour bus drivers to smuggle the goods across the border. 3 tour bus drivers are among 9 people arrested. Officers believe the mastermind of the syndicate is among those detained.
There were disruptions on the East Rail line after wet concrete was spilt on the track near Hong Kong Station. The incident happened at around 3:30 this afternoon. At the time, construction workers were working on a noise barrier when they accidentally spilt wet concrete on the track. The spillage was cleaned up by around 5:30 p.m. and services returned to normal about an hour later. Health authorities plan to offer the new flu vaccine to the elderly according to their risk levels due to limited availability.